The fight over the future of gaming and your digital rights just exploded in a controversy now involving Moist Critical, Asmongold, Pirate Software, and more of the biggest creators in the world. The Secretary of Defense just had a nuclear meltdown on a Fox News reporter during a press briefing about blowing up Iran, but that's only part of the story. Trump is now planning a victory tour for a bill that hasn't even passed yet, but his own party might be the reason that it dies. And the Supreme Court just handed red states a roadmap to defund Planned Parenthood, quietly gutting a core protection for Medicaid patients nationwide. We're talking about all that and much more on today's extra-large Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, starting with this. You've got a war raging right now in the gaming and creator space. Right, gamers are drawing lines in the sand right now because an initiative to fundamentally change the industry is about to fail after repeated attacks by one of the biggest names in the industry, Pirate Software. And it's called Stop Killing Games, and it's meant to start a conversation in legislatures around the world about how to let users keep playing the games they paid for, even after a company has completely shut it down. And notably, it struggled to get over 50% of the required signatures to even be considered by legislatures like the EU Parliament, and the deadline for that is fast approaching. Right, and it appears that one of the reasons for this lack of movement is that the guy who started this whole thing, a creator by the name of Accursed Farms, he admitted in a video this week that he didn't push it hard enough. But he also blames the streamer Pirate Software, who has been critical of the whole premise behind Stop Killing Games and whose coverage was by far the most viewed. It appears that he first talked about this on stream nearly a year ago and made it clear that even if he could sign it, he wouldn't. And in that video, he mentions that the whole point of an initiative is to start a conversation, but
the reason why I have a problem with Stop Killing Games is specifically it starts the wrong conversation. If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single player experience, and then taking away support in the future, this ain't it.
With him then going on to read the first few lines of the initiative, which essentially just wants developers to give users a way to play their games once the publisher no longer wishes to support it, with Pirate Software saying,
"This isn't always possible in all video games, and it doesn't call out the specific practice that this is supposedly trying to defeat. It is incredibly vague and will damage all live service games. How would you keep League of Legends in a functional playable state? You'd have to re-architect the entire game."
And then you see him go on to give technical details about why that's the case, but you get the idea. And then in his other video, he addresses two of the main concerns brought up after his stream, where people had pushed back that, yeah, if a live service game is being sunsetted, people should get the ability to play it if they want to still. And that could either be by making it a single player experience or by releasing the tools that players would need to make their own private servers. And to that, you had Pirate saying,
"Now, many of you are requesting, yes, I should get the server binaries so that I can go and make private servers for this. But that doesn't make a lot of sense in the real world. And the reason why is because it leaves developers open to abuse."
You then see him go into this hypothetical situation where a bad actor wants to make a private server of a game, let's say an MMO, and monetize it. But obviously a studio wouldn't allow that for as long as the actual game is still alive. And so this bad actor attacks the game's social media, bots the game until it's miserable to play, figures out exploits, etc. And this eventually leads to the original game dying, and then Pirate claiming that under this initiative, the bad actor would get access to the server tools needed to start that private server, at which point they can monetize it. And you have Pirate claiming that the initiative does nothing to stop any of that, with him then also making other comments on stream throughout the past year, but once again, you get the idea. Which then brings us back to this week's video by Accursed Farms. Right, and in it, he details how the initiative is essentially right up against the wall here with just a few weeks to go. And flat out, he just doesn't think that he'll get enough signatures in the UK for it to be considered. Though he is slightly more optimistic about the EU, which had around 50% of the 1 million signatures needed. And so with that in mind, he decided he needed to address Pirate Software's claims, which Accursed Farms says are categorically false. So he also said he didn't even want to do it since he felt it was a bit internet drama-y, but he felt he had to since it was hurting the initiative.
Okay, I really don't want to do this next part, but it's become a liability for the campaign for me not to. Our biggest critic by far is YouTuber and streamer Pirate Software, who goes by Thor. If your only exposure to Stop Killing Games has been this video, then you've been misinformed. This video is by someone who does not understand the campaign, has been trying to stop it, and has been making up what it is about.
So he goes on to give examples of how he says that Pirate Software is fundamentally getting things wrong about Stop Killing Games, with this being one example.
Thor does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives is basically, we don't want single-player games to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them. And as much as they want it to be about specifically games where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists. instead of just targeting single player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. This is what I mean. It's harder for gamers to understand this because they come with so many assumptions. It's like that saying about doctors being the worst patients. So let's clear this up. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers.
With the shorter version of that being that Pirate allegedly made straw man arguments about everything that Stop Killing Games wants to do. Now, despite this, you have people reaching out to Accursed Farms to work with Pirate on something since Pirate is allegedly pro-developer and consumer, etc. But Accursed really didn't appear to want to because of how rude Private Software was when speaking about the project. Which regarding that, you have people noting, if you just watched the 2 videos that Pirate made on YouTube, you'd think that he was being pretty reasonable and calm because, he was in those videos. But you have people saying when he's on stream, he had a whole different tone, saying things like,
oh shit, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. No, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I drop the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass.
And so there you have people saying you can see why Accursed Farms wasn't thrilled to talk with Pirate Software and frustrated that the guy he thinks fundamentally doesn't understand the initiative is the dominant voice about it online. Also, it's not like creators hadn't tried to defend Stop Killing Games in the past. Where streamer Josh Strife Hayes made 2 videos that got about 400,000 views totally reflecting on the situation and some of Pirate Software's claims. But then what you saw is things really taking a turn this week. Right in that because a huge voice in the community, Moist Critical, came to the defense of Stop Killing Games, and now it's actually the most viewed video on the topic. Right, and one important thing that he does is near the start of the video, he tries to make it very clear what Stop Killing Games is about.
I'll pause right there. The simplest bare bones birthday suit butt-ass naked explanation for what this is. Stop destroying things that people have paid money to own. I think that is a very understandable, very reasonable take. Very agreeable.
Right, and then you see that he's also highly critical of Pirate Software's explanation of Stop Killing Games, saying,
he didn't even get the Cliff Notes summary right. He missed all the QTEs and got the bad ending on understanding the initiative from the jump here.
Right, and then you see him make sure to clarify that
it is about the whole practice of destroying games that consumers have already purchased and having no end-of-life plans for games that are being sunset.
And you had Asmongold adding on to that while reacting to this clip, saying,
it's consumer protection laws. This is effectively what this initiative is, at its very core, is consumer rights advocacy. It's not about video games. It's not about Ubisoft. It's not about what's in a terms of service of a video game or not. It's really about consumer rights and people having the ability to choose what's going to happen with their own stuff.
And those two are hardly the only ones who have come to the defense of the initiative. Right, Mutahar, for example, Some Ordinary Gamers made a similar video and largely bashed Pirate Software for getting things wrong about the initiative or how infeasible it would be for consumers to set up things like their own private servers. However, he did agree with Pirate Software about one thing.
Now, one thing that I will agree with Thor on over here is sometimes it may not be easy for a game to cut itself off. So for instance, let's say that you're designing an MMO game, right? And I'm going to make this as simple as possible. Whenever you connect to an MMO game like World of Warcraft, you launch a client. Your client communicates with a server. Now, sometimes on that server, there could be other technologies that don't belong to Blizzard, for instance, that they need to, license, they need to interface with in order to run their game. So obviously, it may be a problem down the road when World of Warcraft ends, if it ends, that to release that binary, they have to start calling up some of these companies, like calling them and being like, hey, by the way, can we distribute some of your code? Can we distribute like whatever you've licensed with us? And that company may or may not agree, right?
And so taken together, all of these videos over the last few days has meant millions of views, and most of them critical of Pirate Software. So of course you'd expect a response, and he's touched on it over on Twitter. With his first tweet about it seeming to have been deleted, but his other response is still up, and it's a dissertation. Even though it would make this video longer, and we just love that watch time, I'm not gonna read it all out loud, so here's the short version. He explains what he said in his 2 videos about the topic, and then writes, my main issue with this initiative initiative is that it is broad in its approach to change the industry, and the exact language of the initiative, not the FAQ, requests that all games stay in a functional, playable state, saying this is not feasible for all games at a technical level and could potentially restrict developers from making online-only games like MMOs, MOBAs, and user-generated content games in the future, saying that list is not exhaustive and it doesn't matter if you do or don't like those kinds of games, saying effectively this is the potential to restrict future developers from making kick-ass experiences because it locks a weight on their design. He then also addressed claims that he was opposed to Stop Killing Games because of his professional life, saying in addition to streaming he makes a game and is the director of strategy at Ludwig's Off-Brand Games, saying that he's paid minimum wage for the gig because he cares more about helping games succeed. Additionally, he says that the games they make are all offline anyway, so this wouldn't even affect them, but quote, not all games are like this and not all games can be like this. And this post has driven this all even further, but one thing that people like Josh Stripe Hayes pointed out was that, quote, one of the main issues is when you go from attacking the argument with reason source counter arguments to attacking the person with demeaning bullying insults, saying even if people wanted to listen to your side and even support you, your attitude is driving people away, right? And that then led to a bit of a back and forth where Pirate Software argued that people shouldn't be supporting a legal initiative based on whether they like the person bringing it to the table, but based on what it says. So still, many have felt that Pirate's just being stubborn about his positions, and that's causing a ton of friction. All of which actually led to Moist Critical making an update video yesterday where he said,
no one hates Pirate Software because he doesn't agree with Stop Killing Games. The reason so many people are angry at him, myself included here, you can disagree with the movement all you want. If you don't like the initiative, I'm not your dad. You make your own choices there. But the reason so many people, myself included, do not like how Pirate Software is handling all this is he is refusing, outright refusing, to just admit any level of fault.
And he then claims that the tweets we just covered sent him off the rails. But apparently, Moist, alongside Josh Stripe Hayes, had some DMs with Pirate Software that caused him to at least issue a kind of apology, saying just talk to Charlie and Josh Stripe Hayes for a bit in DMs. If you're mad at me for being a dick to Ross, I get it, and I'm sorry for that. I should not have lashed out, but I had an emotional response due to how important this subject is to me. He then also went on to say that this is a personal topic for him and that, quote, if you want all games to be left in a functional, playable state, then you need to listen to people when they talk about how infeasible that will be in a lot of situations. And saying, since this is the initiative's primary goal is listed on the ECI page, it's kind of important to resolve that. With many then noting there that it still looks like he hasn't admitted to getting anything wrong like people have claimed. But then, with all this, the coverage and the conversation, there's the question of, well, has it helped the initiative? And there, the answer is kind of. Right, it now has 55.5% of the signatures that it needs in the EU, which is a pretty drastic rise in just a couple of days. But still, it's really far off from its goal of 1 million by the end of July. Which is why I'll say, if you're an EU citizen that's watching this and you want to support, I'll include a link in the description. And again, just to remind you, this is an initiative. It's urging lawmakers to start a conversation about how to deal with games when companies want to shut them down. You've got people like Pirate who are concerned that the language is too vague and will steer lawmakers in the wrong direction and actually hurt developers. But that is, you have supporters thinking it's a great start to actually getting some protections for consumers who spend money on the games and then lose access to them. And all of this is, if you got something passed in the EU, it would be a very big deal because it's a big enough market that it would essentially change the gaming industry worldwide. Ultimately, with all that said, whether you're an outsider to this situation or you've been in the weeds on this whole thing, I'd really love to know your thoughts and reactions to what we've been seeing play out. And then you've got more news we need to talk about in just a minute, but first, you know what I love doing? Eating. Whether I've been bigger Phil, leaner Phil, I'm a certified eater. What I hate doing is manually logging every calorie like I'm prepping for a nutrition final that I didn't study for. And that's why Cal AI is kind of genius. It lets you track your meals by just taking a picture. That's it. Point, shoot, log. Right, no more typing grilled chicken breast, skinless sadness edition into some clunky app. And thanks to today's sponsor, Cal AI, this AI app, it breaks down your calories and macros right from the photo. And it does it faster than your brain can say, is that sour cream or Greek yogurt? And if you're the precision obsessed type, it's got a built-in barcode scanner and food database for 100% accuracy. I've tested it myself. It is very accurate, but also, yes, I always double check in case my nachos get confused by the robot. It's super convenient, especially when I'm eating out, and it's incredibly user-friendly, right? Cal AI does the heavy lifting and makes it simple to stay consistent. And the best part, it's affordable and you can try it for free for 3 days using my code DeFranco. It's great for accountability and it also makes me feel better about the choices that I'm making. Like for me, having a system, it keeps me from going like crazy and feeling random guilt. We've talked about me and food for a long time now. And hey, stop guessing and start knowing. Scan that QR code or click the link in the description to download the app and use code DeFranco for a 3-day trial. But the next step from that today, we gotta talk about this Pete Hegseth press briefing that a ton of people are calling deranged. And notably, he seems real mad at a journalist from, of all outlets, Fox News. Right? And so this briefing, it was about the bombing of Iran's nuclear plants on Sunday, and specifically the question of how effective it actually was. Right? Because, well, Donald Trump has claimed that they absolutely obliterated the plants, and some reports do support that claim, others have cast doubt. And in addition to that, you had Iran's supreme leader going on state TV today to dispute Trump's claims, saying they attacked our nuclear facilities, but they were unable to do anything important, and adding they could not do anything, they could not achieve their goal, and they are exaggerating to cover up the truth. And that, as you had CNN reporting that an early assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency suggested that the attack did not destroy the core components of Iran's nuclear program and likely only set it back by a few months. And then you had CNN reporting that preliminary intelligence assessments in Europe suggest that the enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the attack. And so you had people left wondering, okay, we probably can't trust Trump or Iran and the credible evidence is mixed. What actually happened in Fordo? And so in response, you had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth scheduling an early morning press briefing today to clear the air.
President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history. And it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities.
With Hegseth then undercutting the credibility of the assessment drafted by his own DIA and stressing there that it was only preliminary.
It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions. And yet, and still, this report acknowledges it's likely severe damage.
You then have Hegseth quoting statements from the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission, the Israel Defense Forces, the UN Atomic Energy Agency, the Iranian Foreign Minister, Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, all saying that Iran's nuclear facilities suffered significant damage. Though also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, gave the caveat that the Joint Staff does not do battle damage assessments and they leave that to the intelligence agency. But regardless, he offered what he claimed to know about the attack, including that the bombs were built, tested, and loaded properly, that they were released on speed and on parameters, that they hit their targets, and that they all exploded.
All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go.
With them then going on to play a video that purported to show one of the bombs detonating in slow motion, sending a huge fireball up through the ventilation shaft. Right? And I'll say all of that, it was part of what I would call the relatively normal parts of the briefing. Because in the other moments, it went completely off the rails. With Hegseth using the pulpit to bash what he called the fake news, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and even Fox News at a couple of points.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard. It's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump. Because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful.
With Hegseth then going on to say that the media should instead be writing stories about how hard it is to fly a plane for 36 hours or to shoot a drone from a fighter jet or to man a Patriot battery or to refuel midair. But essentially saying the media should do whatever I guess would be the journalistic or propaganda equivalent of the America Fuck Yeah song. With Hegseth then also seeming to suggest that the media reporting had harmed the valor of the soldiers who carried out the attack.
And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission.
Now, with all that, what we've seen in response is many countering that the media did cover all the things that he talked about, from the details of the mission to the reports and statements suggesting that the bombs caused significant damage. That in addition to reporting the fact that the DIA report was very early and might be revised as more information comes out. But also, some of what Hegseth claimed lacked key context, which is something that he accused the media of. Right, so for example, like when he quoted the UN Atomic Energy Agency as saying that Iran's nuclear program, quote, suffered enormous damage, he just so happened, a little whoopsie, to leave out that it also said that claims of complete destruction were overblown. And notably, during his initial speech, Hegseth addressed the DIA report, but not the European report suggesting that the uranium was moved. And so understandably, during the Q&A, Fox News' chief national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin brought that up. But there, what you saw was Hegseth just playing the Trump playbook. He ignored the question and instead honed in on the reporter.
Jennifer, you've been about the worst. The one who misrepresents the most intentionally what the president says. I'm familiar.
Report about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night, And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that.
With then, bizarrely in their reaction to the briefing, Fox and Friends fawning over Hegseth, but then bringing on Griffin herself to talk about it as if nothing had happened. Right? Nobody acknowledging that she had just been scolded like a puppy who shit the rug by the Secretary of Defense. So then separately, to be fair to Fox, an hour later, senior political analyst Britt Hume said that Hegseth's attack on Griffin was unfair and undeserved. Right? And for sure, you had many arguing that Griffin is the last person you could actually accuse of disrespecting the military. Because for years, she's reportedly taken heat from the far right for defending service members. With, for instance, during his first term, Trump calling for her to be fired after she confirmed the Atlantic's report that he had disparaged veterans. And then in 2022, she was the target of what some perceived to be veiled jabs by Tucker Carlson for her fact-checking of anti-Ukrainian talking points. And then more recently, right this month, you had Trump supporters getting mad at her for criticizing ICE for arresting a former U.S. Army interpreter at his asylum hearing, writing, "This should anger every American." And actually, a few days ago, Carlson renewed his attack.
She's a shill, obviously, for the deepest of the deep states. Jen Griffin is a liar, but also very liberal. Wow, true Trump hater.
And then finally, this morning, without naming Griffin, Trump took aim at the press, writing on Truth Social. Rumor is that the failing New York Times and fake news CNN will be firing the reporters who made up the fake stories on the Iran nuclear sites because they got it so wrong. Let's see what happens. But also, notably, Trump did more than just gossip about the media. He went after the legislative branch, with Axios reporting that the White House is planning to limit how much classified information it actually shares with Congress going forward. And that because, according to sources, the DIA assessment was leaked one day after it was put on CapNet, which is the system that the administration uses to share classified information with Congress. Meanwhile, you now have the FBI reportedly investigating the leak, with a senior White House official stating we are declaring a war on leakers yesterday. And then with that, while you have many Democrats agreeing that the leak should be investigated, they're also outraged by the Trump administration's move here. With, for example, Chuck Schumer saying, this isn't about national security, it's about Trump's insecurity. Saying President Trump is cutting off intelligence to Congress, raising one clear question. What is he hiding? And that is, you had House Intel Committee ranking member Jim Himes adding that it is unacceptable for the administration to use unsubstantiated speculation to justify cutting off Congress. And saying the law requires the congressional intelligence committees to be kept fully and currently informed, and I expect the intelligence community to comply with the law. Right, and all of this, it comes as lawmakers were already furious with the White House for not informing certain Congress members ahead of Sunday's attack. But Thursday afternoon, several top White House officials were scheduled to brief the Senate on the attack, with those including Hegseth, Kaine, Rubio, and Ratcliffe. Though very notably not included was Tulsi Gabbard, who provoked Trump's criticism early on by claiming that Iran was not close to developing nuclear weapons. But then also, with all that, you had Representative Himes cutting through all the noise with a thread on X saying, all this caterwauling about whether the Iranian nuclear sites were obliterated or not completely misses the point. The only question that matters is whether the Iranian regime has the stuff necessary to build a bomb, and if so, how fast? So the smart questions are, 1, did the regime move or retain the uranium? 2, did they move or retain centrifuges? 3, did they preserve the metallurgy and other engineering required to build a bomb? 4, if yes, is all that stuff at an unknown location? If the answer to these questions is yes, it's possible that Iran's nuclear program was barely set back. In that case, the Iranians will be thrilled to abide by Trump's, quote, ceasefire. The Israelis probably less so, to say the least. But then also, later in the day, you had Trump writing on Truth Social, the cars and small trucks at the site were those of concrete workers trying to cover up the top of the shafts. Nothing was taken out of facility, would take too long, too dangerous and very heavy and hard to move. And then you had White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt hitting on that in an afternoon press briefing.
So we were watching closely, and there was no indication to the United States that any of that enriched uranium was moved prior to the strike.
From any of the sites?
Correct.
And so you have a lot of claims and counterclaims, and hopefully with time a clearer picture will start to emerge. In the meantime, I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts and what are your reactions to everything we've seen thus far? But then next up from that today, we've got to talk about how the Supreme Court just paved the way for states to gut funding for Planned Parenthood. Because while today's ruling centers on Planned Parenthood and therefore involves conversations on reproductive care and abortion, the case itself actually hinges on Medicaid and the rights that Medicaid patients have when selecting providers. You see, because the Federal Medicaid Act allows patients to choose their doctors so long as they're considered qualified and willing providers. But in 2018, you had South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster claiming that the state had the right to disqualify providers. And he ordered officials to block Planned Parenthood clinics in the state from receiving Medicaid funds, arguing that because the group provides abortions, this forced taxpayers to cover care that they might not agree with. Right? And that, even though federal law already prevents Medicaid funds from covering abortion in most cases. That, and South Carolina currently has strict abortion laws banning the procedure after 6 weeks. You had Governor McMaster arguing that any taxpayer dollars dollars going to a clinic that provides abortions, no matter the reason, results in the subsidy of abortion and the denial of the right to life. And so that meant that Medicaid patients in South Carolina who turned to Planned Parenthood for a variety of other reasons like pregnancy planning, STI screening, vaccines, and other preventative care were shit out of luck. And so then Planned Parenthood South Atlantic and a patient whose contraceptive care was disrupted by this decision sued the director of the state's Department of Health, and a federal trial judge initially blocked the directive. Now, the reason we're talking about this today is that it worked its way up to the Supreme Court, and the court voted along ideological lines, ruling 6-3 that Medicaid patients do not have the right to sue states for disqualifying providers like Planned Parenthood, with Justice Neil Gorsuch providing the majority opinion, saying that the law does not clearly and unambiguously give the right to sue in these matters. Also writing that private suits to enforce federal statutes require clear congressional authorization, and then further adding, private enforcement does not always benefit the public, not least because it requires states to divert money and attention away from social services and toward litigation, and saying balancing those costs and benefits poses a question of public policy that, under our system of government, only Congress may answer. And so you then had Governor McMaster celebrating the ruling, writing, 7 years ago, we took a stand to protect the sanctity of life and defend South Carolina's authority and values, and today we are finally victorious. The legality of my executive order prohibiting taxpayer dollars from being used to fund abortion providers like Planned Parenthood has been affirmed by the highest court in the land. But obviously, you've seen pushback to the decision, with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson writing the dissenting opinion and saying, today's decision is likely to result in tangible harm to real people. At a minimum, it will deprive Medicaid recipients in South Carolina of their only meaningful way of enforcing a right that Congress has expressly granted to them. And more concretely, it will strip those South Carolinians and countless other Medicaid recipients around the country of a deeply personal freedom, the ability to decide who treats us at our most vulnerable. Because it's worth noting that the stakes of this case, it extends well past South Carolina, because the ruling overall makes it easier for any state to cut Planned Parenthood from Medicaid funding, so there's a lot of concern that red states are going to do exactly that. And in fact, you have Axios reporting that some have already made that move. And you have Planned Parenthood South Atlantic accusing Governor McMaster of using this case to weaponize anti-abortion sentiment to deprive communities with low incomes of basic health care. And that, as you had Alexis McGill Johnson, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood, releasing a statement saying, today, the Supreme Court once again sided with politicians who believe they know better than you, who want to block you from seeing your trusted healthcare provider and making your own healthcare decisions. And adding, the consequences are not theoretical in South Carolina or other states with hostile legislatures, saying patients need access to birth control, cancer screenings, STI testing, and treatment, and more. And adding, currently, 20% of South Carolinians, over 1 million, receive healthcare services through the Medicaid program, and approximately 5% of those recipients sought sexual and reproductive healthcare services at PPSAT so far this year, with her then noting that this comes as lawmakers in Congress are already trying to defund Planned Parenthood in a larger effort to shut it down and ban abortion nationwide. And you have many here pointing to the current budget bill in Congress, which would cut Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood, and the Associated Press reporting that this could force around 200 centers to close. And so with all this, you had a law historian and professor writing that this case on its own will likely make it harder for plaintiffs to enforce other civil rights in federal court. And adding, as far as Planned Parenthood and comparable providers are concerned, this case could be part of a 1-2 punch if Trump's big beautiful bill passes. And so with all this, you have tons of Democratic Congress members speaking out against the decision, with the likes of Senator Amy Klobuchar, for example, writing, Planned Parenthood provides life-saving medical treatment to millions of women, from reproductive health care to cancer screenings, and I strongly disagree with this decision. And adding, we will continue to fight against Republican attempts to defund Planned Parenthood in Congress. You then also had some governors of blue states vowing to protect Planned Parenthood and reproductive care for residents of their states. You know, this is a monumental decision, and we're very likely going to see this play out very, very quickly. And in the meantime, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts here. And then you've got even more news in just a minute. But first, you might be savvy enough to spot a scam, but is everyone in your life? Though also, are you and I actually above that? Because fake websites are popping up that look so real. I mean, they could win design awards and still steal your info. They've gotten so sophisticated that even the most skeptical people I know, they've been fooled. For me, my biggest concern isn't just my own info. It's making sure my wife and the kids stay safe too. And I think that's why you got to use today's sponsor, NordVPN, right? Your digital bodyguard in the chaos that is the new normal. And I've got the whole family on it. The kids love unlocking international Netflix. I use it to hide from targeted ads because I'm Googling crazy stuff for this show. And NordVPN, it hides your IP like a magician on incognito steroids. It encrypts your data with military-grade tech. Your ISP, block that shady dude in the coffee shop, block Big Brother, back off. You get access to thousands of servers across the globe, and so you can be virtually anywhere while physically in your hoodie and sweats. You can stay safe, you can stay private, and you stay binge watching that one show that's only on Canadian Netflix. So hey, scan that QR code or head to nordvpn.com/Phil or click the link in the description for a massive discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 bonus months. And hey, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so try it. That's nordvpn.com/Phil. But then, shifting gears from that, we should talk about Trump now reportedly planning a victory tour to celebrate the passage and signing of the big, beautiful bill. And if you're thinking, wait, what are you talking about? Has it passed both chambers? Well, no, not yet, it hasn't. In fact, the legislation's still facing some massive hurdles in Congress. But apparently that doesn't matter because according to Axios, a White House source has said that Trump's team met this week to discuss a victory tour shortly after the 4th of July. Right in that, because that's the deadline the Republicans have set for themselves to pass the bill. And according to reports, Team Trump is planning, quote, a whole of government mobilization with the president, vice president, J.D. Vance, and top cabinet officials doing a lap around the country, visiting target states and congressional districts. But that is, there are still a number of things that need to happen before the Trump administration can spend taxpayer money parading around the country. Because as you correctly remembered, it has not been passed by the Senate at all, and while a version has been passed by the House, because the bill is changing a good deal in the Senate, the lower chamber is going to have to vote again, which is something that's expected to be tricky given the fact that it only passed by a single vote the first time, and since then there have been a number of changes that House Republicans have objected to. But even putting that aside, just passing the Senate version, that itself has been a challenge, right? Because Republicans, they're using the budget reconciliation process, and they're able to bypass a 60-vote filibuster normally required for passing legislation. So that means that they can only afford to lose 3 votes to pass the bill without support from any Democrats, which is expected. And already you've had at least 4 senators, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Tom Tillis, and Josh Hawley, expressing some objections to the Medicaid cuts in the bill. Which also a very key thing is they are even more extreme than the already steep cuts that were proposed in the House version. With Hawley even going as far as to sprint to reporters like it was January 6th to tell them he doesn't think that the current version of the bill has enough votes. And that beyond that, some of the Republican fiscal hawks have also voiced concerns about the massive amount of money that Trump's tax cuts and border security increases will add to the deficit, which they argue needs to be cut more deeply. And there, some of your most vocal critics are Rand Paul and Ron Johnson. You know, it'll be very challenging, if not outright impossible, for leadership to actually reconcile those two major concerns because so much of the cuts being made to fund this bill would come from Medicaid. And while they can nickel and dime around a bit, it's very unclear where exactly they would get substantial enough cuts to appease the fiscal hardliners. And that is the already tough negotiations are just further complicated by the fact that there are very strict rules about what can and cannot be included in the bills being passed by the reconciliation process. Rules that have resulted in several key provisions being forcibly removed by the Senate parliamentarian, who's the official in charge of interpreting the rules and procedures. And specifically, what we've seen is the parliamentarian striking down a measure that would shift some of the burden of food stamps, aka SNAP benefits, from the federal government to the states, which is especially significant because it's been estimated that that provision would have saved the federal government more than $128 billion over the next decade. Though also, notably here, it's since been reported that the parliamentarian has expressed openness to a revised version of that measure. Beyond that, though, the parliamentarian has also cut other notable provisions. With that, including among other things, measures that would have gutted multiple environmental regulations, limited the power of federal judges, and eliminated funding for the Consumer Protection Agency created after the 2008 recession. And all of that as you have reports saying that the official has, quote, carved a category of immigration-related provisions out of the Senate Republicans' bill, including a restriction on grant funds for sanctuary cities. Adding the loss of these and other items complicates the already difficult endeavor for Republicans. And then, just this morning, you had Democrats cheering because the parliamentarian ruled out 2 big Medicaid provisions. The first being cuts to the Medicaid provider tax, which includes a fund to aid states' efforts to improve healthcare access for rural residents. And the second being provisions meant to block the use of Medicaid for gender-affirming care, as well as to prevent adults and kids whose immigration status can't be immediately verified from getting healthcare coverage. And so that, that's now $250 billion off of the table unless Republicans can retool these provisions in a way that would satisfy the parliamentarian's guidelines. And in fact, you're seeing Republicans so pissed off about this, you have people like Senator Tommy Tuberville calling for the parliamentarian to be fired. And so, yes, you're looking at a situation that appears to be pretty massive as far as a setback for Republicans, but also, as you have outlets like Axios explaining, it's a bit of a double-edged sword at the same time, right? Noting that on one hand, it removes a thorny political problem for the Republicans who were opposed to such deep cuts, but then on the other, it'll also force the Senate to find additional spending cuts to pay for the tax cuts that are the centerpiece of the bill. But then also, if the Senate Republicans work it out, they still face many of the exact same problems in the House. But you've got several lawmakers in swing districts echoing the same concerns about cuts to Medicaid that go further than the initial House version of the bill, with a group of 16 House Republicans writing a letter to leadership warning that deeper cuts to the program would jeopardize their support. And that also, as you have conservative fiscal hawks in the lower chamber also raising warning flags about the Senate version of the package. And in particular, you're seeing that from members of the far-right Freedom Caucus. And while many have echoed the concerns of their hardliner counterparts in the Senate about dramatic increases in the federal deficit, it also goes beyond that. In fact, you have Fox News explaining to their readers that this faction is also wary of additional dollars being spent on raising the debt limit, which they claim has been increased from $4 trillion to $5 trillion in the Senate's proposed version. And those are just the concerns being shared by Republicans in both chambers, right? The GOP members in the House, they've also raised a whole host of other issues, with it appearing like arguably the biggest wedge between the two chambers being the state and local tax deduction, aka SALT, which lets itemizing tax filers deduct state and local taxes from their federal returns. In the House version of the bill, lawmakers approved a $40,000 deduction for filers earning $500,000 or less, a provision that was very hard fought and almost tanked the bill altogether. But the Senate proposal that would keep the deduction at its current level of $10,000, which was set under Trump's 2017 tax cuts. And what we're seeing in reports is that blue state Republicans in the House say they will vote against the legislation if it arrives back in their chamber without the $40,000 deal. And then beyond that, some more right-leaning House Republicans are pissed about the Senate's decision to postpone the elimination of certain green energy tax credits that were approved during the Biden administration. You know, all of those, they're just some of the main overarching issues. There's still plenty of other smaller problems that could arise from any number of individual lawmakers who could functionally tank the bill. Because, for example, you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, openly admitted that she didn't read the bill in full and didn't realize there was a provision that would ban states from regulating AI for the next decade. But they're even saying that, if she had actually fucking done her job, she wouldn't have voted for it. And also, I flagged that specifically because in a surprise move, the Senate parliamentarian found that it didn't violate reconciliation rules despite widespread conjecture that it wouldn't be allowed to stay in. And then, just to add a whole other layer to all of this, numerous different polls, including by conservative media outlets, have Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill being overwhelmingly unpopular with the public. Or with at least 5 different surveys finding that on average, just 1 in 3 respondents actually had a favorable view of the bill. So there, I will say the numbers did have quite a range, right? Fox News found that 38% approved of the legislation, whereas a poll from the Washington Post and Ipsos put the number at just 23%. Those horrible polling numbers, it's not lost on Republicans. So it's hard to imagine that it wouldn't potentially influence at least some of them. But all in all, I guess you could say things are up in the air, which is also likely why we've seen Trump repeatedly weighing in over the last few days and urging Republicans to just pass the bill. With him notably ramping up his demands in a post on Tuesday where he wrote, "Now that we have made peace abroad, we must finish the job here at home by passing the great, big, beautiful bill and getting the bill to my desk ASAP." With him then calling on the Senate to get the deal done this week and adding, "Work with the House so they can pick it up and pass it immediately. No one goes on vacation until it's done." So you have many looking at this situation of, okay, he's laying on the pressure to not disappoint dear leader or else risk his wrath. But right now, it's unclear if that's going to be enough to actually speed up the process and deliver Trump this win. That said, despite everything that we just talked about, you have seen some Republican leaders brushing off what are objectively major issues. You've got Senate Majority Leader John Thune telling Axios that he is confident that Congress will meet the July 4th deadline to get the bill on Trump's desk, with him also saying that he expects the voting to start tomorrow, which would carry the process through the weekend. While House Speaker Mike Johnson has begged the Senate to not change the bill too much because it barely passed his chamber the first time, he's also downplayed concerns that the House wouldn't be able to agree on a new version, with Johnson arguing that it would be premature to judge a product that hasn't been delivered and adding, "We remain on the same page about where the red lines are on all this. I'm very optimistic that we will have a product that both chambers can agree to." So for now, we'll have to wait to see if they can keep their timeline, if this will get passed, or if they're trying to downplay a situation that is going to be impossible to overcome. But then, switching gears from that to a different kind of news as we're starting to wind down today's show, I want to talk to you about 12-year-old Ramir Parker, because he is a rising 7th grader, and his hometown of Petersburg, Virginia, is now calling him a hero. And that is because earlier this month, he was at home with his 2 baby brothers and his grandma when he heard a strange noise. So he went downstairs to investigate, and there, he found a thick cloud of smoke covering the lower floor. And so immediately, he rushes to the couch where his little brothers were napping, saying,
"They was on opposite ends of the couch. I grabbed them. I grabbed my 2-year-old brother, and then I grabbed the 1-year-old because the 1-year-old's smaller. And I fit him inside my arms, and then we ran out the house."
But that also wasn't the end of Ramir's heroics for the day, because he also had to work to get his grandma out of the house as well, all while running through thick smoke and a rapidly spreading fire. With then firefighters showing up within 4 minutes of getting the call, but really, there was no doubt in the chief's mind that Ramir's quick thinking, it prevented the story from having a tragic ending.
The bottom line is he saved his family's life.
Right, and the department even highlighted him on their Facebook page, saying, "Ramir saved lives today. His quick thinking and selfless bravery are nothing short of heroic." In a moment where seconds matter, he stepped up just like a firefighter would, just like a protector does. And with that, they also named him an honorary Petersburg firefighter, with a chief even offering Ramir a job when he turns 18. Though also, the accolades don't stop there, because Ramir was also honored by the Petersburg City Council with a special proclamation recognizing his bravery. But for Ramir, the title of hero, it doesn't feel like it fits for him, with him saying that he was just doing what he had to do.
It's my little brothers. I don't care. Because the only thing that matters is that I got my little brothers out the house.
Yeah.
And my grandma.
And so then with all that, I gotta say, Ramir, you are absolutely our BAMF of the day. And not just for your epic heroics, but also just because you're a humble king. Keep being who you are, because honestly, the world needs more of that. But then finally, today, I want to end our time with a congratulations and then talk about your comments. Starting with a congratulations to Ruben L., SeatGeek's latest weekly winner. I mean, he's gonna be using his $500 prize to treat his sister to an Indiana Fever game for her birthday. And for the rest of y'all, that's right, SeatGeek is still giving away $500 in tickets, and you should definitely enter today if you haven't already. I mean, imagine being the next winner and snagging $500 towards seeing your favorite artist, sporting event, or play. I mean, there's like over 70,000 events to choose from. And all you gotta do, just add code PDS to your SeatGeek app profile for a chance at the weekly $500 prize, no purchase necessary. But also, the code will even save you money on your next purchase. So yeah, just do it, it's a no-risk win-win. But that said, let's talk about y'all's comments from yesterday's show and some commentary. Because on Monday, y'all were sounding off on Trump, Iran, and Israel, and specifically the threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon, with Leaf saying Iran has been months away from nuclear weapons for the last 3 decades, with then Silent Night noting the difference between governments and the people they represent, saying what sucks about this is that the citizens of both countries are going going to suffer the fallout. These politicians don't fight, the soldiers fight and lose their lives. I was in the military during 05, 08, and no one I know wanted to be deployed. With the Brit call outing there, the people of Iran also don't like their regime, much like much of the US doesn't like ours. It's important to separate the people of a country from their corrupt leaders. We, the people of the US, did not drop any bombs on Iran, and the people of Iran did not retaliate. Though finally, regarding the Monday show, I'm going to ask for an update on this comment since, things have been playing out this week, because you had Pearl Cute Sparkle saying, guys, my very MAGA mother who has supported Trump for the past decade has finally caved. This Iran situation is what broke the camel's back. She didn't even waver during January 6th. I'm very wary still, but I had a 3-hour conversation with her, longest conversation I've had with her in years, and not once did she accuse me of being brainwashed. And so Pearl, I'm gonna make a guess, I could be completely wrong. Did she just completely go back the other way after the past few days? And I ask because I've heard similar stories where just in the past 24 hours they went, well, actually, he's a genius. Then on Tuesday, a lot of people were sounding off on the Donald Trump Ariana Grande situation, with E. King saying, I'm tired of people saying you can't have a political opinion because of your job. You're a voter, you have a right to an opinion. With then Goodbye Mish chiming in on Megyn Kelly, saying the way that woman talked about Ariana was disgusting. Can't believe there's still women willing to bring other women down talking about their bodies and or health just because they disagree with their opinion. With others then saying the irony of Megyn Kelly saying Ariana Grande isn't qualified to talk about politics while supporting Trump, the reality TV star. With many then just generally disgusted by Megyn Kelly and noting that even Donald Trump years back called her an aggressive lightweight. But then finally, regarding the Wednesday show, you had a lot of people sounding off on the Mamdani situation, with many finding it hilarious that Eric Adams decided to go on Fox and Friends to question Mamdani, saying Adams calling Mamdani a snake oil salesman is a great example of the pot calling the kettle black. And then largely you had a lot of people agreeing with the notion of Zoran's win being a breath of fresh air at a time when being a progressive feels like drowning in despair. Though again, a reminder, it's not a done deal. That was a Democratic primary in a very unique state and a very unique situation. I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen in the full election. That is gonna be the real ultimate test. But also, I gotta say, based off of the reaction from part of the internet, I hope that man has security. But that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's show. And let me just say, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you right back here on Monday, because remember, I got a brand new show for you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Love you, mean it, bye.